Nyanje jembor zordan hingmi jang zoner monum jembor ngab gyabda balgradar ngam zanto shirmar do tumba thje chan la ke sham ne jerwar zerni jangam za jawar du gi shano yelarman yume panzo jama sorand gonget toban bor shinjilo.
The answer past, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficulty encountering beliefs of aeons. I now see it, hear it, receive it, uphold it, vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning, to liberate all beings. Let's generate the supreme bodhicitta.
Holanam saji chedang kamnyam bo limpag dakam ngoksum nirtong re bumgo khotsid simgyar ngapchego zawlang sag sokka ngoksum dedang ja ngokchig khotsid xietang jibago walang shordum korig dantong dang ngabgya ji ngabgya jangda tomchig xietang sim jamar nyan lang zhiji ngurich Khotsid nirtung tabkur gyartung ngo lidang limpag ngayvar jan yordan tangna tevzhin lamchugun ro jamar nyandar namnuk tsugu shepchig sirungne gzyan namni le ngansung tuk nyari rangzhan la tese gogne khotsid nirchir na narmit tirtang jandan tsagmar ne tedang damjur changnir gyapo yang tsagnir namdang jamba jandang ne nyensu ne la ngipa mamchi jang nyenkur wana tsagnir kurda ne yedagar gyarpu kapki chonggugda khotsir ngabgyan debar tsabi ne yanlag lamin jikten tagnagang yot Tundro shangne jamsu chimbo te kantoral hami yerna neba yin tori marna olang ji olang
Now let us begin our class on the wish-fulfilling treasury. While studying this text, I think all of you are studying it attentively, and I really wish that each of you pay great attention to study, contemplation, and practice. I'm sure each and every one of us have very different afflictions and different problems and different obstacles, but all of those can be transcended with various methods, especially in this dark age. To have an opportunity like such to study such a long sutra, a long shastra, is indeed very rare, and in the future such opportunities will get less and less. Therefore, while we're studying this, I really hope that you can adjust your own mindset, your own mentality, and study the text with joy and with respect. The seven treasury can be called the essence of emptiness teaching of Longchenpa. Usually, not many people would give teachings on this. Not many people would have the opportunity to receive this. In the past, we used to have a class in Larongar, the Seven Treasury class. They spent 7 years to study the seven treasuries. At the end, many people had left halfway through out of various reasons. Throughout history, we can see that to study the seven treasuries in completion is not very easy, and it's just a rare number of people who can study all the seven treasuries. Majority of people only listen to the oral transmission of it. Of course, oral transmission is really great too. Even if you have time later on, I think it would be good to give the oral transmission, and it would be good for you to listen to it. If you have such an opportunity, of course, that would be quite supreme. Anyhow, currently we're studying the third chapter, we are studying the cosmology, the Buddhist cosmology. Previously, we've already talked about the base and the object as well as the subject. In terms of the base, we've already talked about the different wheels, the wheel of space, of wind, of water, of earth, of gold. So the 5 wheels. The objects that can be relied on are the mountains, the Mount Sumeru, the 7 golden mountains, and then the Chakravarti mountain, and then the ocean, and then continent. Today we will get to the 4 continents, the 4 great continents, and then the 8 smaller continents. So altogether 12. All of these continents are inside the Chakravarti mountain range, but outside of the Nimindara mountain range. Therefore, all the continents rest in the salty water ocean. When we talk about Buddhist cosmology, I believe many of you would feel that quite confused or doubtful, because nobody could see Mount Sumeru. If there is a Sumeru, then we should be able to see it. If there are Mount Sumeru and the 7 golden mountains, we should be able to see it. This kind of doubt, I'm sure, is quite normal, quite common. To explain it, it could be simple and could be not so simple, because we have to talk about these from the perspective of Buddhism. I remember when I read the autobiography of Master Tanshu, some people asked Master Tanshu about the formation of Mount Sumeru and the 4 continents, and why the description is different than the scientific explanation. For example, the scientific explanation says that there's the earth, and then there's the mountains and waters, and then there's world formed so and so ways. But in the autobiography, Master Tanshu said that his answer was that it's very easy to explain, because in the past, that was the then science. But now the science has discovered a different aspect of the world, and in the future science would be able to discover even more aspects. Because of the different eras, different discovery and exploration, and different scientific development, therefore, the outcome, the results, would be different too. It is to say that people's exploration is different. Just as about hundreds of years ago, people's opinion about this universe would be about heliocentric, and then later it became geocentric. So there are various ways of understanding the cosmos. But I think to develop a better way of understanding the cosmos would be really important. As I stated last time, the cosmology, on one hand, the cosmology that the Buddha expounded on one hand is to comply with the worldly view, the common worldly understanding of the cosmos. And the Buddha agrees with the sentient beings that this understanding of the cosmology is considered as the true convention. Because the Buddha, in the sutra, he said that if the worldly beings would reckon one thing as the truth, I shall also recognize it as the truth. Because that is the conventional truth. And the Buddha is simply complying with the conventional truth and speak to all of us as an audience. Whenever we talk about the Sumeru and the 4 continents, in fact, that teaching is given through a more vast cosmology. from that point of view, a bigger point of view, it is not just focusing on us, how the beings of Jambuvipa views the world. Rather, it is from a higher level or a higher dimension, to use the modern language. The 3,000-fold world if we were to use this trichiliocosm as the reference point, then the so-called cosmology, so-called the cosmos that we understand is simply one speck of it, or just a tip of an iceberg. Or sometimes it could be maybe just a speck of dust, because the Buddha's teaching on cosmology is from a much more vast point of view. It is to give the teaching of the cosmology based on all the sentient beings of the 6 realms, as well as all the noble ones who had attained the yogic perspective or yogic perception. Then they would be able to perceive the Mount Sumeru, the gold mountains, and the Nagas and the oceans. So other than human beings, in fact, there are a variety of sentient beings. For human beings, of course, there are things that we can't really see. We can't perceive. Look at all the 4 different continents. Let it be the Uttarakuru or the Pravida. Those kinds of continents cannot be perceived by human beings. At least the human beings without miraculous powers, we can't really perceive them at all. In terms of the animal realms, let's not even discuss about the other continents. Let's talk about the animal realm. We can only see only a portion of the beings in the animal realm. We only know a very small portion of them. We don't see for example, the 99% of the sentient beings living in the deep ocean. And then let's talk about the ghost realm, and then the beings in the desire realm, in the form realm, in the 6 heavenly realms, in the desire realm, and then the 18 levels of the heavenly realm, the formless realm, the Triashrimshas that's on the top of Sumeru, and then the 4 heavenly kings whom resides around half and a little bit below about the half of Mount Sumeru, and then the Ashuras and then the Nagas that's living also around there. Those are not part of the perception of the human beings. There is a saying that there are always better people out there, and there are always higher mountains out there. This 3,000-fold world includes a miraculous amount of various things. Indeed, we can only perceive a very small amount of the phenomena. Therefore, let it be Mount Sumeru, let it be the 4 continents. The teaching on the Buddhism cosmology is from a much more vast point of view rather than just focused on one small group of people. This kind of vast cosmology that's taught in Buddhism can hardly be detected by the current scientific methods, the scientific mechanism. By taking the airplane, by taking all the kinds of tools that's created by science, it's still not detectable by all of those kinds of machineries. According to the Sutra of the Right Mindfulness, it says that if the causes and conditions are matured, then one will be able to perceive it. If the causes and conditions are not met, are not matured, then one would not be able to see it. This particular teaching from the Sutra of Right Mindfulness is quite crucial. Therefore, I will repeat it again. If the causes and conditions are met, then one will be able to see it. If there is the lack of causes and conditions, then one will not be able to see it, even if it is existent. Why is that? It is because all the Dharma arise because of cause and conditions. So let it be the Mount Sumeru or the Uttarakuru continent. If we do not have the causes and conditions that's matured, then with our current dimension, which is very much limited, we won't be able to see it. Human beings live in this third dimension. We can see the second dimension, we can see the third dimension. But other than some very special beings with those miraculous powers who can probably enter into the fourth dimension and see through the time dimension, just as those people with the ability of making predictions, not many people would be able to see other dimensions. According to Professor Hopkins, he also said that there are at least 11 dimensions according to the study of physics. However, for human beings, we can only see just very few of them. We can hardly transcend it. Therefore, the divine eye or the miraculous powers or some very special type of sensory that some people could have, then those very small number of people would be able to perceive things that's beyond the mundane people's perception. There is a sutra. It says that it talks about the story of the Mount Sumeru and the four continents. It says that there was once a bhikshu and a novice monk. By miraculous power, they entered into the Puravadiya continent on the east. At that time, there was one arhat meditating at the bank of a river. So two of them stayed with the arhat for a period of time, and then they returned back to Jambudvipa. The bhikshu didn't bring anything back, but the novice monk brought back a little rock. At night, the monastery started to radiate light. People who saw it were all extremely amazed by it. Then the old bhikshu saw it and asked the young novice, "Did you bring something back from the Puravadiya continent?" The young Shramana said that, "Yes, I did. It was a piece of rock." So the old bhikshu asked him to take it back through miraculous power. But maybe because it was too late, so the young novice just threw the rock into the Varanasi river. But then that illuminated the whole river. Everything can be seen through, including all the fish and rocks and everything. So people were standing at the bank and started to look into the river. On the second day, since everybody is looking at the river, the old bhikshu said that, "Did you throw the rock into the river again?" The young novice said, "I did." So the old bhikshu asked him to send the rock back immediately. So the young novice also had some miraculous power. Therefore, he got into the river without wetting his clothing, his robes at all, and fetched the rock back and sent it back to the Puravadiya continent. In lots of the stories of the Buddha and Buddha's disciples, including Maudgalyayana and Shariputra, they've been to the four continents, and they've even begged for alms at Uttarakuru continent. It is said that after they bring back the food, they begged the alm back all the way from Uttarakuru continent. they were not able to have it anymore in the afternoon. So as we can see from these stories, the human being's perception is not that vast, but there are a particular small group of people who do have those miraculous powers and they can travel in such a way. In fact, not just in Buddhism, in other religious traditions, they all have various ways to describe the shape and the formation of the cosmos. But they have lots of commonalities. For example, whenever we look at all the ancient cultures, they all describe that at the center of the cosmos there is a mountain, there is a tall mountain. For example, in the Greek mythology, there is the Mount Olympus. Now, though, that there is a mountain that's named Olympus, but at the very earliest origin, it is part of the folklore where the gods live. And then the Sumerian mythology, they also have similar ways of describing the universe. Many of the traditions tell the similar story that is similar to how Pangu opened up this cosmic egg, and at the beginning this whole world was at a state of chaos. When it comes to the description of Mount Sumeru, it was about 4,000 years ago in the Hinduism tradition. In their mythology, they also talk about Mount Sumeru and mandala and the Bu mandala. They have such kind of description as well. There was one mathematician. He was a graduated PhD from Cornell University. He studied Hinduism and spent his whole life studying and researching into the Veda cosmology and later into some of the ancient cultures' mythology. He was born back in 1947 and passed away in 2008. Around the 90s, he wrote a book on the knowledge of cosmology from the Vedic point of view, from the Hindu point of view. His particular exploration and theory is on the Mount Sumeru and cosmology. He thinks that the cosmos, the descriptions of cosmos and Mount Sumeru surpass that of the sensory of the humans. It is higher and transcends the dimension of the human beings. So before the human beings or before the sentient beings have a more matured wisdom and perception, then that kind of world would be very difficult to fathom. Though that his perception and his point of view is more from the Vedic point of view, but in Buddhism, I think it is very similar. His description is similar, especially the description of Mount Sumeru and Mandala. So on one hand, it could be that the Buddha is complying with the teaching back then, and on the other, when it comes to the 3,000-fold world, in fact, this 3,000-fold world is not just targeted to human beings as audience. Rather, it is described as the 3,000-fold world with all beings in mind, such as human beings, nagas, and the celestial beings, and the beings of the six realms, and beings of the various levels of realization. That's the cosmology. So when it comes to the cosmology, we should understand that the world is not as narrow as our perceptions as mundane beings. We cannot perceive those because we don't have those causes and conditions met. When we studied the praises to the 16 arhats, it says that some of those arhats lived in various continents. Some of them lived in the Uttarakuru and some of them in the Purvavidiha. Currently, we live on planet Earth, but for the other beings, maybe they live in different modes. Many countries on our planet Earth, they have various kinds of studies on aliens. In fact, the aliens are also a type of human beings, except their modes and they probably look different than us. There are lots of stories about them. For example, I heard that there was once an architect. He took on a big project, and then out of various ways of traveling, he had to go underneath the earth and traveled quite far, where he saw the other types of, where he saw the other human beings living under the earth. After his project is finished, partly it's finished and part unfinished, he then returned back to the world on top, and then he explained his experience. So that many of you probably feel that this earth right over here is the only thing that's existed for human beings to live. But those are the things that we can perceive through our eyes only. However, what we don't know is that, in fact, nowadays, many of the countries would build the underground military or weaponry experimental labs. So those are still kept in secrets. I think there are people who have some knowledge about it too. As mundane beings, there are the ones with wisdom, and without, there are the ones who can through their prediction and understand the secrets of the world and the secret meaning of the Buddha. For example, in the Madhyamika Avatara, it says that at the end, the secret teaching that's taught by the Buddha all the way from generating bodhicitta till the very end cannot be expounded. The great masters such as Master Gorinpa and Tsongkhapa and Chakchopa, all of those great masters, some said that the Dharmakaya secret of the Buddha cannot be expounded through speech. Some said that it is the aspiration of the Buddha cannot be expounded. The time of making aspiration till the enlightenment of the Buddha cannot be expounded. So the secret of the world can be hardly explained. It is not that if you just go to a university and studied for many years and even finish your PhD, and right away you'll be able to point out all the secrets about this world. For example, though that we have Nagas, there's Naga palaces, but we can't see it. It is only that Nagarjuna was able to go to the Naga's palace by himself. Though there are Nagas, we see them on TV, in the movies, but we can't perceive them with our eyes. Also, as it is stated in the Sutra of the foolish and the wise, it says that one's mind cannot be trusted, one's mind consciousness cannot be trusted, because the unit of measurement of the mundane beings is extremely small and extremely narrow. Therefore, after studying this, we'll be able to see that the great compassionate Buddha's worldview, his view of the cosmos, is completely different. Of course, it is not to say that whenever people ask you certain questions, you can only reply those people by saying that, oh, this is inconceivable, this is unfathomable. Well, that is not necessarily an answer to apply to all questions, because there are aspects that's unfathomable, but there are aspects it is just because the limitation of our flesh eyes that we can't see it, or the limitation of our dualistic mind that we can't perceive it. Of course, this is something that we need to dive into and then make more discussions. And I'm simply presenting my point of view, and we can discuss on it. Because from my point of view, I think if we were to say that all sentient beings' karma that's manifested at different periods of time is different, if you were to just argue about that, then you have to be able to point out, okay, so when did the world transform into the now world, and how did the world transform to the now world? Then you would have to explain in such a way, so I think that doesn't make much sense. The cosmology that's explained by the Buddha to the sentient beings are using the reference of all sentient beings of the 10,000-fold world. Therefore, in terms of the distance and the sizes could also be different according to different sentient beings as well. For example, when I went to India, I took the traveling journal of Gunam Chopo, and according to him, some of the distance were about 20 kilometers. But when we went there, it was just 5 kilometers. And some of the places was very close according to his journal, but it took us a very long time to arrive. So is it because of the change of routes, or is it because of some other means? I'm not quite sure. But whenever we read such teachings that are difficult for us to fathom, we need to understand that our wisdom is very limited. There must be some inconceivable teaching within this particular description. With my wisdom growing, I'm sure I will be able to start accepting it more. Today we will talk about the continents. And it's rather easy in terms of the verses. According to Mipa Rinpoche's textual outline, it is on the explanation of the continents. The first verse says that the continent's ground and water is of the same height. Previously, we've already talked about the Sumeru. Half of the Sumeru mountain is above the ocean and the other half is below the ocean. It is of the 84,000 yojanas. It is said that Jainism also shared the same calculation. I can't remember if it is Jainism or a different Jainism or different religion. It says that there are two sets of the sun and the moon rotating. One set is working and the other set would take rest, and then they take turns. Just as how some of people would attend a day shift and the other would take night shift. So this world is quite wondrous. Over here it talks about within the ocean, There are the two winds that blows to the two directions, that is the outward and inward. And then based on the different directions of the different continents, then the wind starts to work. After that, the water, because of the various force of the wind, it forms, the water forms into various shapes. Previously, we've already talked about the particular water that is talked about over here is not necessarily all liquid. It slowly would then become solid. Because of the wind kept on churning the water, and then the water, based on the different force of the wind, it becomes the 4 large continents and then the 8 smaller continents. After the continents are formed, they are a little bit lower, they're a little bit shorter than the 7 mountains. When it forms, we've already talked about the few different types of wind, the wind of superior, medium, and the lower capacity. So the higher capacity wind, the superior wind, is the one that's formed the Sumeru mountain, and the medium is for the 7 mountains, and then the lower is the 4 large continents, and then the 8 smaller continents. So we can take them as the nutritions that formed the various kinds of mountains and continents. Now we know that all the continents are a little bit taller, a little bit higher than the ocean. The 4 great continents, let's look at them. First of all, the continents of the east, the Purvavadiha continent takes the shape of the half circle. According to the Agana Sutra and Agama Sutra, it says that it is of the shape of a circle, which is a little different than the description over here. Anyhow, it says that this continent is of the shape of a half circle. It is said that the shape of the human being's face living on different continents are the same as or similar to that of the shape of the continents. It has 3 faces. Each of the faces has 2,000 yojanas. On top of that, there is a protruding place, and that has 305 yojanas. The human beings that's living on the Purvavadiha continent, their heights are very tall. It is because of that this particular name, Purvavadiha, means the supreme body, so people are very tall living on that continent. Since the shape of it is a half circle, the radius part is facing the Sumeru, Mount Sumeru, and then the curving part is facing to the Chakravarti, the Iron Range mountains. So since it has 3 sides, around the radius part, it is of 2,000 yojanas in length. And then on the 2 sides, it is of 2,000 yojanas and 2,000 yojanas. On the smallest part, there is a small protruding place because it is not a perfect semicircle. There is a protruding place, and that protruding place is of 350 yojanas. Since it is a continent, it is not something that is drafted by a ruler or by a compass. Therefore, there are some uneven protruding places on the on the continent's shape.
我们要算它的半径的scale的话，那实际上是如果它还有就是350游巡的话呢，有点困难。
When we calculate the size of the continent, we can't usually calculate the smaller protruding place at the corner of it right away. Usually we would calculate the radius first, and then we would add on to that small protruding corner to it. So that corner is about 350 yujanas. In terms of the explanation of the continents, it is very similar to the Mahavibhasha Shastra and the Abhidharma. According to Mahavibhasha Shastra, I'm not sure if I've talked about this, around 303 CE to 425 CE, there was once a translation of the Mahavibhasha Shastra, but that translation is not complete. There was 14 volumes at the beginning and then later 60 volumes. The most complete version that's translated under the emperor, under the translator Master Xuanzang during the Tang Dynasty was about 200 volumes. In his translation, majority of the translations or the names of the 4 continents were used in such ways in the Chinese language. And then later, Master Fa Xian and other masters, when they translated the Parinirvana Sutra and the other sutras, they use the phonetic translation, phonetic way of translation, rather than Master Xuanzang's translation was more towards the translated meaning of each terms in the Chinese language, that is. But later, after Master Xuanzang, most of the translations of the 4 continents were then unified into his translation, or by using his translation. The particular translation in Tibetan language, most of them are unified, but some of the translations are a little bit different. For example, some of them, according to the Abhidharma and the wish-fulfilling treasury, are a little bit different. In terms of the locations, there are some differences as well. Anyhow, we can look into it again. The next one is about Jambudvipa. Jambudvipa is located at the south of Mount Sumeru. It is of the shape of a scapula. It has 3 faces, which are equivalent to that of the Purva Vidya continent. Why it is called Jambudvipa? It is said that if you were to walk northbound from the Vajrasana from India, there are 9 black mountains. After 9 black mountains, there is 1 large snow mountain. Between the Great Snow Mountain and the Fragrant Mountain, there is a lake called Anavatapta Lake, means the lake without vexation, without afflictions. And then at its bank, this is the Jambudvipa. The reason it's called Jambudvipa is because there are lots of sandalwood. According to the sutra, it says that Madhikalayana and Shariputra often would go there, and then they would go back and talk about there are all kinds of trees, and there are different fruits that would drop on the ground. Some of the bhikshus would say that when I touch that fruit, the hand would be tinted into various colors. In the sutras, there are many stories associated with this. Even the Buddha's hand also got tinted into the orange color. At the time, the Buddha also asked the Venerable Kashyapa to enjoy the fruit from Jambudvipa. And then Venerable Kashyapa said, no, I can't enjoy it. It is for Venerable Buddha to enjoy. And then later it is said that the fruit of Jambudvipa would increase desire. There are teachings like that too. So this is the Jambudvipa. The Jambudvipa's shape is in the shape of the scapula, which looks similar to the triangle. It's more similar to the scapula. Some of the ancient descriptions of Jambudvipa, it says that the shape of Jambudvipa is like the chariot. It is more like the chariot that the kings used to take in the ancient time. It's a little bit more like the rectangular shaped triangle. Since it has 3 lengths, therefore, each of the 2 long sides, it has 2,000 yojanas, and then on the southern part that has the shorter distance, it has 350 yojanas, which is short. And then at the center of it, there is the Vajrasana of India. And then there is the Bodhi tree that decorates Vajrasana. According to the teaching of Theravada tradition, it says that at the center of it, there is the five-pronged Vajra. And in the center of it, there is the Bodhi tree. On the 4 sides, there are the 4 stupas. Between the center to the fringe, there are about half yojanas. According to the Mahayana, it says that there is the 5-pronged Vajra, which forms into the shape of a cross. A crossed 5-pronged Vajra, and then in the center of that there is the Bodhi tree. The distance between each is about 1 yojana. And then there are the 4 different Vajrapurva stupas. There are different descriptions of it. It says that this is the most stable place of Jambudvipa. It says that at the time of destruction, when the 7 fires and 1 water were to destroy the rest of the Jambudvipa, the Vajrasana is of the most stable. It will stay in the mid-air, just like floating in mid-air. So it means that the great inconceivable blessings of all the Buddhas, this particular place is not going to get destroyed. There is another really interesting point about the Bodhi tree at Vajrasana. Every time when a new Buddha is born, a new Bodhi tree will grow over there at the same place. Maybe because of the reason of the birth of Buddha. The old tree, out of various reasons, it will cease, and then a new tree will start to grow. Just as the previous Bodhi tree was destroyed by another religion, and then later the same seed of the Bodhi tree were planted at the same place. So the Bodhi tree that we see now is not the same tree that the Buddha attained enlightenment. For example, the tree that Shakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment is named as the tree without worries. And then the tree for Bodhisattva Maitreya is the Naga adornment tree. Though the trees have different names, at the time each of the Buddha take seat and attain enlightenment underneath that Bodhi tree. In fact, there are different trees associated with different Buddhas. So each of the Bodhi tree also have different names.
树的这种刚才我讲到那个 可能这一棵树一直是到那个
We were talking about the
不是
trees.
这样的，应该是就是在不同的时代就是会变化不同的这个
The trees during
树
the
就像那个
different
印度涅园
Buddhas
的话呢，
are
树
different.
释迦牟尼佛转法轮的时候呢，有这个它的法座，就是然后
However, when it
所有的
comes to
先
the
界佛
Dharma
呢，就是
throne,
转法轮的时
the
候呢，
Dharma
就是都
throne
有这
that
个法
the
座。
Shakyamuni
但是我
Buddha
们人类
used
看的话呢，
during
不要说
his
这
turning
个
of the
先界
Dharma
前
wheel
佛
at
就是以
Deer
前那
Park
个释迦牟尼
is
佛转
going
法
to
轮
be
的
the
这个法
same
座的话呢，
throne
就是
for
现在
all the Buddhas of
就
the
一
good
个因
kalpa.
子倒没有啊，就是这个但是佛经里面
Though
就
that
确
we
实说
don't
是
see
这个
this
鹿
Dharma
野原呢
throne
有这个
anymore.
先
However,
界前
it
佛
is
转法
said
轮的这
that
个法座呢，就是
in
都有。
the
所以有些
sutra
时候是
that
可
there
能这个
is
人类
the
啊
Dharma
就是
throne
天人啊，或者是
in
龙类，
the
就是把
Deer
它
Park
隐
for
藏出
all
在
the
我们人
Buddhas
类面
of
前呢，就是现现的
the
可能
good
也有不
kalpa
同
to turn the
各种
Dharma
各
wheel.
样的吧啊，就是
But
我在
maybe
印度有那
because
个
that Dharma throne
什么蒙
is
城里面
has
已经
been
讲过，就
hidden
是
by the
不要说
celestial
当时
being
的
or
法
by the
法座，就
Nagas,
是包括鹿
and
野原
then
和
it
那
would
个就
appear
是
in different
佛
ways
陀
in
这个
front of
降生的
the
地方
human
和金
beings.
刚座的话呢，如果不是这个当时的这个佛国记和西游记
I
的话
believe I
呢，
mentioned this
就那
before.
个印度的那个学者，
If
就
we
是
do not have the
什么
record
那个
by
叫那个
Master
学者啊，就是
Fa Xian for his record of
英国
the
的那个
journey
不是那个
to
学者
the
的话呢，
Buddha's
就是恐
country
怕是
and
那
the journey
个
to the
就
West
根本
and
就没
then
有
the
就是现在的这个很多遗址都是
archaeologists,
根本
the
就
British
看不
archaeologists,
到的，就是
I
所以
think
说呢
now we won't be
就我
able
们这
to
个
review
确实
many
是
of those
现在人
pilgrimage
类所现
sites,
现的有些呢，
such
就是
as
还是
Vajrasana and
有
Deer
限的
Park.
啊，就是人类所
In
现现
fact,
的
all of those
有些的
places
话呢，
that's
就是不是
reviewed
权威的，就是这个
to
大家也
human
应
beings
该
are
要
still
知
very
道，就是
limited.
这么一个道理，就是
We
所以
should
呢，我们这个
understand
南
that.
瞻部注的话呢，就是这样的一个世
This
界啊，
is
就是应
the
该在这里的
description
话呢，
of
就是好像
Jambuvipa.
南瞻部注算是整个世界的
So,
中央啊，
according
就
to
是
this
应该是比那
description,
个
the
很
Jambuvipa
多这个
should be
咒的话
considered
呢，
as
就
the
是都有
center
这
of
一
this
个殊
world.
胜性的，因为
Therefore,
先
it
界
is
前佛
more
全是这个出
supreme
世
than
的。
the other
然后
continents
接下来
because
就是
this
像
is
那个犀
the
牛合
place
咒啊，
where
犀牛
all
合
the
咒的话呢，就是实际上
Buddhas
是
of
它是这个
the
原性的
good
啊，就是
kalpa
原
will
性
take
的。
birth.
然后呢，就是
The next one is
它
the
的
West
这个咒
continent,
唱，就是因为它原性的话
Aparagodania.
呢，就是它是这个
It is
咒唱
of
的。它那
the
个阿含经和七十
circle
经里面
in
说是
shape.
这个是半圆镜，就是它这里面稍微有点不同的，就是这个是就犀牛合咒是半圆性的。
According
那
to
么
Agama
它
Sutra
是
and
圆性的
Agana
话呢，
Sutra,
就
it
是它
says
的
that
咒
it
唱
is
是这
a
个七千，就是
semicircle,
无
but
有
the
尽啊，就
description
七
over
千
here
无
is
有尽。
different.
那
It
这
says
个
that
2500由旬呢，就是
the
宽，就是
this
宽也可以
continent
说，或者
is
说它的这个
a
直径
circle,
吧，就
and
是如果它直
the
径的把
circumference
它原
is
性的咒唱的话呢，就是肯
7,500
定是这个
yujanas. The
就
width
7500
or
嘛，
the
就是
diameter
7500。
is
那这里
2,500
这个犀牛合
yujanas.
咒为什么叫犀牛合咒的话呢？
Why is
有
it
些论点当
called
中说是因为
the
犀牛合咒的话呢，就是主要
Aparagodania?
有一些那个
It is
牛
said
的那个
that
教义啊，就是
on this
或是那
particular
个货物的
continent,
货吧，
there are various kinds of trades of the bowls. They sell particular wish-fulfilling bowl, wish-fulfilling ox. So they have this kind of trading. Therefore, the meaning of this continent is trading of oxes. But in the wish-fulfilling treasury, in the Tibetan language, it is not just the oxes, it's also of elephants. And then the next one is of the north. The north one, Uttarakuru continent, it is of the shape of a rectangle, rectangular shape, and it has 4,000 yojanas on each side, therefore 8,000 yojanas altogether. The translation is the not melodious sound continent. That's the meaning of this particular continent. Why is that? It is because within the forest of the wish-fulfilling forest trees, it would make the sound of rakshas. It is said that each of them would be able to enjoy all kinds of enjoyments for 1,000 years, since they don't have much of the negative karmic retribution. And then at the time of death, out of the wish-fulfilling trees over there in the forest, then there's the sound that would reverberate, making the sound that you're going to die. Therefore, the beings living there, they would suffer a lot. Therefore, it is called the not melodious sound continent. Just as the worldly beings living in our continent, they don't want to hear that they're dying either. So that kind of voice is not very melodious to the ears. And then the shape of their face is also similar to the shape of the continent, which is also a square. Now let's look at the 8 subcontinents that's surrounding the 4 large continents. There's the Deha and Vidya, the Chamara and Apara Chamara, and Shata, the Uttara Mantrina, as well as the Kurava and Kaurava. So to each of the large continents, there are 2 small subcontinents on the 2 sides of the large continents. To that of the east continents, there is the Deha and the Vidya. To the Jambudvipa, there is the Chamara and Apara Chamara. To the 2 sides of the Apara Godaniya, there is the Shata and Uttara Mantrina. And then to the Uttarakuru, there is the Kurava and Kaurava. Each of the continents are of the half size of the main continent or the large continents. For example, Jambudvipa has 2 subcontinents. The 2 subcontinents surface area adding together would be equivalent to that of Jambudvipa. This particular teaching is similar to the Kalachakra teaching as well. So now we've already concluded on the continents. Now let's look at the separate explanation on the subjects that are the sentient beings. It has 2 parts, the brief explanation and then the extensive explanation. The brief explanation says that respectively there are the 2 places for the sentient beings, which is the lower realm and the lower realms and the higher realms in terms of the lower realms, there's then again the brief explanation, and then the extensive explanation. The brief explanation says lower realms, and then the extensive explanations have three aspects, that is hell realm, hungry ghost realm, and animal realm. Let's look at the first one, which is the hell realm. Mipo Rinpoche's textual outline is indeed really excellent. He spent a lot of time in exploring the content of wish-fulfilling treasury. Now, when we look at the brief explanation of the subject of whom rely upon the basis, this is not particularly on the sentient beings yet. Over here, it still talks about the subject. Previously, we talked about the object that can be relied on. This part talks about the subject that can be relied on, meaning on top of the five wheels, there's the Mount Sumeru, the mountains and oceans, and then on top of that, there are the places for the various sentient beings to rely on. So the first one talks about the particular places for all the lower realms beings to stay. This is really interesting. When you study Abhidharma, it's probably not going to get that much in detail. Over here, it points out the location of a hell realm. It says that the hell realm is underneath the Gandhis mountains of Jambudvipa, about 20,000 yojanas below. Previously, we talked about the various kinds of karmic forces, karmic retribution of the sentient beings. Some said that if the hell realm is below Gandhis mountains, then you should point it out. But that is not necessary that you can see. We don't even need to mention about the hell realm. Can you see the extraterrestrial beings? Can you see those aliens? If you can't point out those, it just simply shows that it's not part of your realization. It's not part of your perception. Gandhis mountain is Mount Kailash. According to the common vehicle, it says that there are the beings that we can perceive and there are the beings that we can't perceive. So those are the beings that we can perceive. About 20,000 yojanas below the Mount Kailash, there is the Avicii hell. And then, counting from the largest part of the hell, that is the Avicii hell, there is the intense heating hell, great howling hell. So they kept on going up, and the distance between each layers of this hell realm is about 2,000 yojanas. So the hell of ultimate torment is about 20,000 yojanas below the mountain, and then layers by layers of hell realms in between. There are about 2,000 yojanas. And then to further go up all the way to the foot of Mount Gandhis or Mount Kailash, there are still thousands of yojanas in between. And in between there, that is the Black Line Hell, and then the most closest to the foot of the mountain is the Reviving Hell. By sentient beings' dualistic thoughts. If you really want to see it by the conceptual mind, or through the conceptual mind, according to the Great Heap Sutra, it says that the hell realm is empty without characteristic. The nature of it is of great purity. There is no one that had created the hell realm. It is rather generated out of dualistic mind. It says that over here, underneath the Mount Kailash, there's the Avicii hell about 20,000 yojanas below the mountain, and then layers by layers, there are different levels of hell realm. Usually in our world, we talk about going up to heavens and going down to hell. In all traditions, we talk about that. But the description of hell realm or of different heaven realms or celestial realms are not as specific as the Buddhist tradition. It is because the karma of sentient beings are incredible, are completely beyond conception. Therefore, after we created those vice karma, we will directly fall into those kinds of hell realms. And then on the side of it, it's just as neighboring it, there are about 20 yojanas in distance. There are the cold hell realms, the hell of blisters, a hell of burst blisters, of chattering teeth, of lamentations, of groans, of upala-like cracks, of lotus-like cracks, and of the great lotus-like cracks. The layers and the depth is exactly the same, and in between each of the hell realms, there are 20 yojanas in between. They're also underneath the Mount Kailash. For people who made grave mistake, grave negative karma, they would first suffer in the Avicii hell, and then they would keep going through their negative karmic retribution through the cold lotus-like cracks, and then a hot hell realm, and then going through the entire 16 hell realms. They would all go through the cycle all the way from the bottom of the hell realm, and then one by one they would be able to surface to the top layer of the hell realm. It is to say, for those sentient beings who made the most horrible negative karma. But for those people who made specific negative karma, for example, those who made the specific negative karma to be reborn in only a cold hell realm or only in hot hell realm, then they take much longer period of time in those hell realms. For sentient beings who had a great intention and did not make confession, for those kind of beings who made the negative karma afterwards, is called the worst type of negative karma. After making those negative karma, if one were to make a confession after making negative deeds, then the consequences is not going to be that severe. So before death, one should definitely confess, because we probably had made lots of negative deeds. I can't really remember, is it that everyone has to suffer from the cold hell realm and then had to go through the 16? I can't remember very clearly. Now let's continue to finish talking about the three lower realms. The next one talks about the lonely hell realm. The lonely hell realm are places at indefinite places. Some of them are at very isolated places. Some of them are in the rivers and the streams. Some are in the high plateaus, and some of them in the pillar or in the door, in the sofa, or in the painting. So they would suffer from great amount of fear. Though it is called the lonely hell realm, in fact, many of those beings who suffer from such kind of consequences, they would be gathered together. However, their mind is very lonely. There are 8 hot hell realms, and then on the 4 corners of each of the hell realm, there are the sub-hell realms. Altogether, according to Mahavibhasha Shastra, it says that there are 136 sub-hells on altogether in hell realms. In terms of the other 3 continents, the previous hell realms are not existent in those 3 continents. However, they do have the lonely hell realm or the ephemeral hell realm and the neighboring hell realm. Why is that? It is because in Jambudvipa, the sentient beings would create both virtuous and vice karma quite intensely. That is why they would take birth in hell realm or attain liberation. So there are lots of good opportunities and bad opportunities. Just as in some countries, if they don't have anyone to violate the law, then there's no need to build prisons. Not sure in the Uttarakuru continent why sentient beings would create negative karma, why and how their hell realm would be existent. The next part is on the hungry ghost realm. It says that the place for the hungry ghosts is underneath the city of Rajgir. It is about 500 yojanas underneath, and it has the branches in the celestial realm and the human realm. So we can see that it is underneath the city of Rajgir. That is the base of hungry ghosts. But it is also scattered in celestial realm and human realm too. In terms of the pretas, the hungry ghosts, there are the ones with merits and the ones without merits. In terms of the hungry ghosts with merits, there are the ones that lives in the Purva Vidiha, that's the continent on the east, and then the continent on the west, the Apara Godaniya. The northern continent, the Uttarakuru, is of great merit. Therefore, it seems that they don't have any hungry ghosts. According to the Mahavibhasha Shastra, it says that there was once a king who traveled to the celestial realm. The Chakravartin saw the celestial beings were eating the celestial food and wearing celestial clothing. Though they seem exactly like celestial beings, but they were the hungry ghosts. The next one is the place for animals. The animals live mainly in the great oceans, and some scattered lives in the celestial realm and the human realm. So as we all know that the majority of the animals live in great oceans, and there are a part of them live in human realm. In terms of the other animals, they live in celestial realms, such as the desire realm. There is the wish-fulfilling ox. And then there are birds that lives in pure realms, such as all kinds of birds and peacocks. In terms of the place that they live, we can call that the wheel of forms. Some of the hungry ghosts and animals, they live in the wheel of forms. They could live on plateaus and in mountains and trees and snow mountains, or in the space or in the fire. They could live anywhere and endure their consequences of negative karmic retributions. So we should definitely generate compassion to them.